Hey everyone. Ever wonder what makes us attracted to certain people?
Yeah, it's a question that's fascinated people for, well, probably forever.
It really is. And today we're going to dig into that.
Here to deep dive.
Yeah, exactly. A deep dive into the science of attraction.
We've got this fascinating research here,
Yeah, a podcast episode called Relationship Deep Dive.
and it really goes beyond just like, those initial sparks and butterflies.
Right, like it's more than just, oh, they're cute.
Exactly.
So we'll be looking at all sorts of things from like biology and psychology to even evolution.
hmm A lot of surprising factors contribute to who we find attractive.
Okay, so let's jump right in.
Okay.
This episode talks about love being like a chemical cocktail.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. It really is like a cocktail of different brain chemicals that get activated when we're attracted to someone.
I mean, it's a pretty strong image, right? Like a potent love potion or something.
Totally. And one of the main ingredients is dopamine.
Oh, dopamine. That's the feel-good chemical, right?
Exactly. Think about that rush of excitement you get when you see someone you like.
Yeah.
That's dopamine doing its thing. It's like
Yeah.
your brain is giving you a reward for noticing that attractive person.
So it's like, hey, good job. You spotted a potential mate.
Uh-huh. Yeah, something like that.
But dopamine's not alone in this, right?
Not at all. There's also oxytocin.
Oh, oxytocin. Isn't that like the cuddle hormone or something?
Yeah, it's often called the love hormone.
Yeah.
It's all about bonding, closeness, and trust.
Makes sense. So when we hug someone or even just hold hands,
Even eye contact can release oxytocin.
and that creates those warm, fuzzy feelings.
Exactly. It helps us feel connected and safe with someone.
Okay, but isn't there another chemical involved, like a third ingredient in this love potion?
You're right. We can't forget about serotonin, the
Serotonin.
mood regulator. It helps create a sense of calmness and happiness.
Okay, so we've got dopamine for the excitement, oxytocin for the bonding, and serotonin for that overall good feeling.
Exactly. A
Yeah.
powerful combo.
No wonder it feels so good to be around someone we're attracted to.
Right. But here's the thing. Attraction goes way beyond just these initial chemical reactions.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. Where else does it go?
It's actually deeply rooted in our evolutionary history.
Wait, so evolution plays a role in who we find attractive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Think about it this way. Attraction leads to mating, which leads to offspring.
Okay.
And from an evolutionary perspective, we're programmed to want to pass on our genes.
Right.
So we're naturally drawn to partners who seem like they'd give us healthy, strong children.
So it's like we're subconsciously sizing up our potential mates.
In a way, yes. Our brains have developed these shortcuts to assess genetic fitness.
Okay, that's fascinating. So, like, what kind of shortcuts are we talking about?
Well, for example, studies show that we tend to find symmetrical faces more attractive.
Symmetrical faces.
Really? Yeah. Now, it's not about being perfectly symmetrical,
Right, no one's perfectly symmetrical.
but a general balance in facial features.
Okay.
It can be a sign of good health and strong genes.
Wow, so we're picking up on these subtle cues without even realizing it.
Exactly. It's all happening beneath the surface. And that brings us to another interesting aspect of attraction. Pheromones.
Okay, pheromones. Now, those are mysterious. Like, what exactly are they?
They're basically chemical signals that our bodies release subconsciously.
So, like, we can't actually smell them.
Not consciously, no,
Mm-hmm.
but our brains can detect them. And they can influence who we're attracted to.
Whoa. So I could be attracted to someone because of their scent, even though I don't even know I'm smelling it.
It's possible.
Hmm.
And here's what's even more interesting. Pheromones can signal things like genetic compatibility, especially when it comes to our immune systems.
Hold on. How can a scent tell us about someone's immune system?
Well, research suggests we might be subconsciously drawn to people whose immune systems are different from our own.
Okay.
The idea is that if you and your partner have different immune system strengths, your offspring could inherit a wider range of defenses, making them more resilient to diseases.
So it's all about making sure our kids have the best chance of survival, like nature's way of playing matchmaker.
It's pretty amazing.
Mhm.
But of course, attraction isn't just about biology and evolution.
Right. There's got to be more to it than just our genes.
Exactly. Our minds play a huge role too. Relationship Deep Dive explores some key psychological factors that influence who we find attractive.
Okay, so let's get into the psychology of attraction. What kind of mental processes are we talking about here?
Well, one of the biggest factors is similarity.
Similar.
We tend to gravitate towards people who share our values, interests, even our backgrounds.
That makes sense, like birds of a feather flock together, right?
Exactly. There's a lot of truth to that saying. When you're on the same wavelength with someone, it's just easier to connect.
Right, like you already have that common ground. But wait, what about the whole opposites attract thing?
Well, It's not always so black and white. Sometimes we are drawn to people who are different from us.
So which is it? Similarity or opposites?
It can be a bit of both. While similarity can be a strong foundation, sometimes we're drawn to qualities that complement our own.
Okay, I can see that. Like if I'm super organized, maybe I'd be attracted to someone who's more spontaneous,
Yeah,
to balance things out a bit.
exactly. It's like that yin and yang concept. But what about those situations where people fall for someone they initially didn't even like?
Oh yeah. Like in those rom-coms where the characters start off hating each other and then bam, they're in love.
Well, that brings us to the power of proximity. Simply being around someone regularly can increase the chances of developing an attraction to them.
Really? So it's not just about physical attraction or shared interests. Just being in the same space can make a difference.
Absolutely. Think about it. Shared experiences, inside jokes, all that stuff contributes to a sense of closeness.
So maybe Cupid's arrow is less about magic and more about just spending time with someone?
Could be. But we also can't forget about the role that our environment and society play in shaping who we find attractive.
Right. Like beauty standards are always changing. What's considered hot now might have been totally different a few decades ago.
Exactly. Relationship Deep Dive points out how social and cultural norms have a huge impact on our perceptions of attractiveness.
So it's not just about what catches our eye, it's about what our culture has taught us to value, right?
Precisely. And those values can vary wildly across cultures and even within the same culture over time.
So basically, we're walking around with this filter, shaped by millions of years of evolution, our individual psychology, and indeed the society we live in.
It's quite a complex mix, and that filter is constantly being tweaked and adjusted as we encounter new people and experiences.
So our preferences aren't set in stone. They can change over time.
Absolutely. Think about it. What you found attractive in your 20s might be totally different from what you find attractive now.
Yeah, that's true. I guess our life experiences and even just our own personal growth can shift what we're looking for in a partner.
Definitely. It's fascinating how dynamic attraction really is.
But with all these influences swirling around, it seems almost impossible to pin down any one thing that makes us attracted to someone.
You're absolutely right. Attraction is this incredibly intricate tapestry woven from biological drives, psychological tendencies, and sociocultural influences.
It's like there's this whole hidden world behind those initial sparks and butterflies.
There really is. And understanding that world can change the way we think about attraction altogether.
It's kind of amazing though, right? Like all these forces shaping who we're drawn to.
It is. But it can also feel kind of overwhelming.
Mm.
Like, are we really just at the mercy of our biology and all these societal pressures when it comes to attraction?
Right, like do we actually have any control over it?
That's a great question. And honestly, I think understanding all these factors is actually empowering.
Empowering. How so?
Well, because it helps us move beyond those simplistic ideas of types or those superficial checklists that people sometimes use.
So instead of just going with the flow or like following that initial spark blindly, we can start to understand why we're drawn to certain people.
Exactly. It's about becoming more aware of the influences that are at play.
Okay, I can see that. So like, for example, if I realize that maybe my obsession with romantic comedies has kind of messed with my expectations of grand gestures,
Hmm.
that's a good first step, right? Just recognizing those influences.
Absolutely. Or maybe you realize you're drawn to a certain type because it reflects something that you feel like you're missing in yourself.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that kind of self-awareness can be really liberating.
It's like we're taking back some control instead of just feeling powerless to our attractions.
Exactly. It's about taking ownership of your own romantic journey.
I love that. Okay, so we're not just robots following our programming, but I gotta ask, can we actually control who we're attracted to? Like, can I just decide to be attracted to someone?
Well, it's not quite that simple. We can't
Ugh.
just flip a switch and change our deep-seated preferences.
Right, okay.
But by becoming more aware of those influences like we were just talking about, we can start to make more conscious choices in our relationships.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's not about like hacking the system, but more about just understanding ourselves better.
Exactly. It's about fine-tuning your own unique attraction formula.
I like that. Fine-tuning your attraction formula. That sounds way less daunting than trying to reprogram my brain. But being more aware of all this stuff, won't that take the fun out of it? Like if I start overthinking every new person I meet, analyzing their symmetry and wondering about their pheromones.
That's a really good point. It's important to remember that attraction, at its core, should be about feeling that spark, that genuine connection.
Right, like it shouldn't feel like a science experiment.
Exactly. This knowledge is meant to enhance your experience, not replace it.
Got it. So we can still have that head over heels feeling, but with the added understanding that there's so much more going on beneath the surface.
Exactly. And honestly, that understanding can lead to a deeper appreciation for the beauty and complexity of human connection.
It's like we're not just passive characters waiting for Cupid's arrow to strike us. We're active participants in our own love stories.
I love that. And with that active participation comes choice. We're not robots. We get to choose who we let into our lives.
So even if there's that initial spark, whether it's from our brain chemicals or evolutionary cues or whatever, we're
Yeah.
not locked into anything.
Exactly. Attraction might be the initial spark,
Yeah.
but it's compatibility, shared values, and emotional connection that builds a lasting bond.
So it's really about choosing who we want to build that connection with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that choice should be based on so much more than just that initial attraction.
Okay, so let's say I'm drawn to someone, like they seem to check all the boxes, but something just feels off.
Then trust your gut. There's more to a fulfilling relationship than just meeting certain criteria.
Right. It's about that intangible click, that feeling of being truly seen and understood.
Precisely. And that's something that goes beyond any formula or checklist.
Wow. This whole conversation has been so eye-opening. We've pulled back the curtain on the world of attraction and gotten a glimpse of all the gears turning behind the scenes.
And hopefully what we've realized is that we're not just passive bystanders. We have a say in how our own stories unfold.
I love that analogy. It's like knowing the mechanics of attraction gives us more freedom to write our own love stories.
Exactly. And that's an incredibly powerful realization.
So we've explored brain chemicals and evolutionary impulses, societal norms, and even the power of choice and intuition.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. But it seems like attraction really is this amazing blend of science and the soul.
I think that's a beautiful way to put it. It's this delicate balance of so many factors, and that's what makes it so captivating.
So where do we go from here? We've unpacked all these influences, but what's the key takeaway for our listeners?
I think the most important thing to remember is that attraction is multifaceted. It's not just about looks or shared interests or even that elusive chemistry,
It's about recognizing that there are all these layers to this whole dance of attraction.
and that awareness can help us navigate our relationships with more intention and self-awareness.
It's like instead of stumbling around in the dark, we've got a flashlight to illuminate the path a little bit.
Precisely. And that light can help us find our way to more fulfilling and meaningful connections.
Well, I'm feeling a lot less mystified and a lot more empowered after this conversation.
Me too.
But I have a feeling we're just scratching the surface of this endlessly fascinating topic.
Oh, absolutely. There's always more to discover, more nuances to explore, and that's the beauty of it.
So we've gone deep on the science, the psychology, the social aspects, and even touched on the element of choice.
We have?
And hopefully our listeners are feeling a bit more equipped to decode their own unique attractions.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, it's about understanding ourselves as much as it's about understanding the other person.
And that self-awareness, like you said, can be the key to unlocking those more fulfilling relationships.
It really can.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, the big takeaway for me is that attraction is just way more complex than we often give it credit for.
It really is. I mean, it keeps researchers and psychologists busy, and I'm sure all of us have thought about it too, on a personal level.
Totally. And even after learning all this stuff, ultimately what makes someone attractive to you, it's going to depend on your own experiences and what you value.
Yeah, exactly. There's no magic formula. It's a
Yeah.
mix of so many things, from your biology and your psychology to the social world around you and just what you personally find appealing.
And the really interesting part is it's always evolving. What we're attracted to can change so much throughout our lives as we grow and learn.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, have you ever looked back at someone you were attracted to in the past and thought, what was I thinking?
Uh-huh. All the time.
It just goes to show that our attraction formula is constantly changing.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, here's a question for you listening. What makes you feel attracted to someone?
What are those qualities that really draw you in, beyond just the superficial stuff?
Is it their sense of humor? Their passion for something they care about? Or maybe the way they make you feel seen and understood?
Yeah, or their intelligence or kindness, or maybe their adventurous spirit.
Yeah.
It's going to be unique for each person.
Exactly. There's no right or wrong answer, and I think that's what makes this whole topic so fascinating.
That everyone's got their own special blend of things that creates that spark for them.
So as you go about your day, pay attention to what catches your eye, what keeps you interested, what makes your heart skip a beat.
And remember, understanding the forces at play can give us a whole new perspective on this crazy little thing called attraction.
Well, we've gone from the inner workings of our brains to the big picture of evolution.
Quite a journey.
We've talked about social influences and even the power of making our own choices.
It's a lot to think about.
It is. But hopefully this deep dive has given you a new way of looking at why we're drawn to certain people.
And helped you understand your own attractions a little better, too.
Exactly. So until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and most importantly, keep connecting. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.